I feel nauseous, believe me. Never had a lot of shit come easy. Had to work hard, struggle just to be me. Had to rise up just so they could see me. Did what I had to do just to feed me. And what was left over,
Alright, how's it going, guys? Welcome back. Creature Dewey here once again. Now, I wanted to bring a few videos to you. I just wanted to say hello in a personal way first before we get into the videos. There's a few of these that have been very interesting and been kind of like speaking to me lately in Canada. There's a lot going on, needless to say. A couple of the videos are going to be here and there, so one of them, the starting video, is going to be a couple months back. I'm not going to go fully in depth into that video. We're going to transition to a few other videos, and we'll probably hit the X page as we have before. But yeah, so without further ado, let's get into that. Alright, to start things off, guys, we got this video here. This is a little while back now. I recorded this once, but unfortunately, while I was recording, some things got messed up, and I only got a segment of the 2 or 3 segments that I had produced. So we're going to go into this one of Wealth Moose's. I'm not sure. I think I seen a repost, and that's how I actually wound up finding it again, because all my browser history had been shut down. So we're going to watch this, and we'll comment on it at some point, possibly pausing it. Hard to say, it's only a 2-minute video, so maybe not. Maybe we'll wait till the end.
I'd love to get all of your thoughts on this government's use of time allocation motions, because I mean, you've all laid out various concerns.
Oh, here's a pause already. Okay, just an FYI, I am not pro-Green Party, and I do not really care for Miss Elizabeth May here. However, every once in a while she says something that needs to be taken account of. I think that Mark Carney, very early on into his tenure here, I'm not even sure if it's 10 years, that's after being in it for a while. Either way, very early on into his prime ministerial role, he basically said that he made an agreement with Elizabeth May, and then he totally and completely said F her, basically, and didn't keep to the promise.
You have with various bills that are sort of being rushed through, but you know, how do you balance that as well with the fact that there are only so many sitting days and you need to move things forward?
Why are we in a rush right now? We could add sitting days. That's a discretionary choice. We could use our time well. And if we followed the rules of Parliament, which no one has for decades, we could make Parliament work more efficiently. We could add more days if you need time to study bills. And we're not getting it. This government, I mean, I decried the Harper administration's use of omnibus budget bills. It was appalling. And then
Trudeau was way worse.
Time allocation over and over again, more than any previous government. And then the Liberals under Trudeau promised no more omnibus budget bills and no more time allocation. But now, this administration is not only using omnibus budget bills to hide things that were never mentioned in the budget at all, like we're going to
Boom, okay, I love that. I had to just, man, hide shit that was never in the budget at all. That is the Mark Carney government for you. And these Liberals on X and social media will just praise him like he's doing such a great, fantastic job, you know, but it's so horrible. He's horrid. He's literally making them all look so horrible.
Regulate pesticide use to allow dangerous pesticides to be used. That wasn't in the spring economic statement either. Again, this moment, right now, is the worst I've seen in 15 years as an MP, with prime ministers going from...
This is the worst moment in 15 years I've seen.
Stephen Harper to Justin Trudeau and now Mark Carney. I've served in that parliament with all of those governments in majority positions and minority. This is the worst I've ever seen, and I feel that democracy itself is disrespected. Parliament itself is disrespected, and the existence of...
Absolutely, man. You know, I'm not the biggest Elizabeth May fan at all, but this is so accurate. It's how many different ways is the Prime Minister now, and even previously in the Trudeau era, how many different ways are they going to insult the whole parliament, the democracy as a whole, man. Like, they don't give a single crap about it.
Reminds me of what the late Jim Travers said once. You can talk about democracy. You can go to Ottawa. It's basically a democracy theme park. All the buildings are still there. You can tour them, but there's no democracy going on. And at the time, I thought there's still some democracy going on. But welcome to the democracy theme park.
Boom. Welcome to the democracy theme park. That shit. Oops. There we go. Come on, mate. Alright, so next up on the docket we have this video, and I know it's America and not Canada, but I think this is very important. So I'm gonna get into this and then that.
I'm gonna say this, and I don't give a who cries in the comments. It's about to get real. I'm done apologizing for being white. I didn't own slaves. I didn't write Jim Crow. I didn't redline. I was born in the 1980s to a middle-class family that had to work for everything. I work 50-plus hours a week, pay my taxes, and I'm still told I'm the villain. Every day it's check your white privilege, do a land acknowledgement, post the black square, feel guilty for something I had zero to do with. No way. My great-grandparents came off a boat from Germany with nothing. I've got black people in my family tree, and nobody in my bloodline ever owned a slave. You want an apology? Dig up the dead. You want money? Call Congress, or better yet, work for it like everybody else has to.
Yeah, no
I'm not
shit.
your emotional punching bag, and I'm sure as hell not your ATM because my skin is lighter than yours. And let's be real, people who never pick cotton want a check from people who never owned a plantation.
Yep.
That's not justice, that's a shakedown.
That's
And these
damn
sniveling
right.
liberal
It's a
white
fucking
apologists
shakedown.
crying online for sins they didn't commit, you're not brave, you're a fucking embarrassment. You apologize.
Yeah, no shit. So that's legit what I'm trying to get at is in Canada we've gotten to, so this is why I'm doing this even though I'm a Canadian commentator and not an American one. We've gotten to this point in Canada where we feel like we owe people for the sins of the past. 150 years ago, there isn't even a single person alive that initially came over to colonize. Yet they want us to give land acknowledgements and fucking reparations or whatever, all these different fucking things. And yet it's like, why? I'm not guilty of their crimes. I'm not guilty of the sins of the past. Yeah, I know, okay, so you can say the residential schools and whatnot, but even that, there's very little to do with the people that are now white going around to do with that. Like, sadly, they didn't teach you about it in fucking public schools, actually, to be honest, and that's kind of a shameful thing, because you're blaming me for shit that I didn't even know occurred about it. It stopped the year I was born, and yet you want fucking compensation from people like me, and it's like, dude, my family has no connections to, like, the tracing back of that. Like, my family's never been never been politicians and never set any sort of policies. We've never been rich. We've always been middle class, maybe lower middle class, you know, whatever. It's not been like we've had fucking it way better than anybody else. So it's like the fact that they want to force us, the citizens, instead of the government, or hell, just getting off their own asses, quit drinking and fucking go get a job instead. You know, it's an embarrassment that there's white liberal fucking idiots that are just like, oh, we owe you the world, this is it. It's all this white guilt syndrome going on, and it's completely ridiculous and completely unfucking founded.
It's when you f up, not for history you weren't alive for. I'm sick of being told it's a crime to be a straight white man in this country.
Yeah.
I go out of my way to treat people with respect until they give me a reason not to. I'm done bending the knee. I'm done whispering. I'm done disappearing into the background so you feel comfortable. I'm picking my side. I'm not guilty. I'm not sorry. I never was. You can stay mad. If you're done apologizing too, drop a comment below.
Hell
Oh man, this one is going to throw people for a loop because they want him to apologize for something that he was not a part of, and the fact that he's speaking his mind, which I'm gonna be honest with you, Like, it's a lot of people that feel that way. It's people that come up to me every single day, black, white, Asian, all in between. That's like, yo, why can't people just be people, and
Yeah.
accept them for who they are and what it is that their experience is with them, instead of judging them based off of.
Yeah, screw this race card fucking bullshit. Guess what? It doesn't matter what race you are. You can be racist to another. White people can have people be racist towards them as well. There's a whole bunch of people with different colored skin, whether it's natives of Canada or black people of America or what the hell have you. And they always like, oh, you can't be racist to them. It's not possible. But it's like, okay, then I can't be racist to you either. We're all the human race. It's one race. It's not a billion races. You're talking ethnicity. And ethnicity is simply tracking your ancestry origin. And it's still not the same, and being racist or whatever, against a certain ethnicity or whatever is completely fucking bullshit no matter what.
The color of their skin. I've never seen anything in my life, a skin issue, in my lifetime, born in the 80s, raised in the 90s, to where it's been polarizing my entire life. And the fact that people keep on having these conversations over and over again as far as whether or not you have white privilege. I don't even know who coined that term. They need to be rich as hell. They should have trademarked it, the whole term white privilege, because man, the work that they've done on liberal white apologists to make them feel comfortable about the fact that, oh my God. And it's like, I have never seen more white women than I have now. And it's becoming more prolific. It's becoming even more pronounced. You see it more and more every single day. I've never seen more white people apologizing to people for doing things that they never did to make them feel better about how they feel about life. And
Yeah, really though. Okay. That's that one. Shut up. I don't want it to move on.
Recession or
Shush. Okay, what is white guilt? White guilt refers to the psychological discomfort, shame, or remorse that white individuals may experience when recognizing historical ongoing legacy of racism. It often stems from awareness of systemic injustice and the unearned privileges associated with whiteness. Okay. So, since there's that, I wanted to go further in depth into this topic. Why is only white guilt? Other races have things to be guilty about. Because, so you would think that other races who have, done things wrong to other races should also have guilt about it, right? But it's not the case. You only ever hear about white guilt. What about Islamic guilt? The Islamic people have been murdering a ton of people and stuff like that, and in fact both Islamic nations and African nations were also involved in this right here, slave trade. The term white guilt is predominant because it specifically addressed the global scale of European colonialism, the transatlantic slave trade, and the legacy of systemic racism in Western societies. However, underlying psychological concept, feeling collective guilt or shame for actions committed by one's own racial, ethnic, or national group is not unique only to white people. Okay, and then hold on, let's go further down. Let's check this. So here's what I said in response to the rest of it. You can also pause and read the rest of this if you want to. I'm just trying to keep it going for the video's sake. I've never heard of black guilt, Asian guilt, or Arabian. Why should I, a Canadian, have guilt for what Europeans did when Arabians have none for doing it to Africans? Because they colonized all the way through to the majority of northern Africa. Like, there's a lot of fucking Arabians that have conquered well over into that area. They conquered a lot of the Jews' settlements as well. And you never hear them about having their own version of that guilt. They don't have Arabian guilt for fucking their colonization. So it's a total double standard, and they want us to feel that way is the point as well. They want you to feel that way because it weakens us. Okay, you do not need to feel personal guilt for your actions you did not commit. The concept of white guilt is often criticized precisely because it focuses on a person's skin color rather than the individual choices, which can feel unfair and unhelpful. There are clear reasons why terms like black guilt or Arab guilt are rarely heard, and why conversation in Canada focuses on European history rather than events in the Middle East. I mean, yeah, obviously we're settled by Europeans, so that's partially why. But I think there's still a double standard there. Cultural differences, guilt versus shame. Sociology. Alright, welcome back, guys. I got another little segment I want to do here. That's Tamara Jansen. Been following her. I believe she's one that was involved in the trucker convoys. She had some of her assets seized back under Trudeau. I wanted to get into this video because, well, there's this going on. U.S. declines to extend CUSMA trade deal to Canada. But also, the campaign promise in quotation right here.
Found the idea that he was the only one who could. Watch this.
But I have managed budgets before. I have managed economies before. I have managed crises before. This is a time for experience. United, we are standing up for a nation. And united, we will win this trade war. If we lose the negotiation because we give them what they want, we will lose as a country. We will be damaged. We'll lose access to their market. They will do more damage to us.
Canadians were told Mark Carney's experience would give Canada an advantage in dealing with the United States. Instead, on this Canada Day, Canadians are facing uncertainty about the very trade relationship that's been the foundation of our economy for generations. Canadians are incredibly patient people. They've waited, they trusted, they've been told to...
We've waited too long. We shouldn't have ever let Mark Carney get in. It was a scam and we fell for it.
Give it more time. Well, it's time to stop pretending everything's going according to plan and start telling Canadians the truth. Mark Carney didn't...
Absolutely. So, now that we've got that context, let's go to this.
I think the president, as did President Obama, which I just said to someone else, is looking for a shift of the burden within NATO. That's appropriate. That is happening. That's gaining momentum. That's part of the point I made to President Trump when we spoke a few days ago, is that it's not just he's winning the argument, he's won the argument.
Boom, look at that. He's fucking admitted it. Now this is with that, but, so this is about the defense argument, right? But he's won the argument, so Trump won the argument. And I'd hate to say it, but
countries
where is our CUSMA deal? He certainly hasn't won that argument either, has he?
Recognize that they need to take more responsibility. See that.
And he said he will not use critical minerals and oil as leverage. He will not use some of our leverage as leverage. That stuff could easily be political leverage, but he will not use it as such. Because then he'd have to take away some of the restrictions, take away some of the regulations, so we can produce enough of it.
Direct threats. Now the question for NATO, and part of what we will discuss and part of the point I will make in the room with my 3.5 minutes of time, so which is about a quarter of the length of my normal answer, I know, so I apologize.
Yeah, it's more than you deserve.
Is that those shifting burdens are going to be, in our view, most effectively done.
Anyways, Trump won the argument. Look how strong of a leader he is. Trump won the argument. He won the CUSMA deal. He won the argument on defense in terms of NATO. Is there anything Mark Carney's actually done that he promised at all? He's the only one that could make a deal with Trump, right? Bullshit. Where is it? It's been, what, a year and a half? Still no deal? In fact, what, Kuzma over the next 10 years could be phased out entirely for Canada? Okay, I want to get into these ones. I shouldn't get too heated about them, but I do want to touch on them because they're important. And I want people to be asking themselves this question up here still. How is Canada doing? Because from my lens on the situation, not that great. They just turned down $70 billion from the UAE. They turned down, let me say it again, $70 billion from the UAE because of our regulations and restrictions and our bureaucracies and all the different forms of red tape they have would make that cash just sit there instead of actually doing anything. At a time when our economy needs a flush of cash, needs to get some intake instead of some constant outtake, they couldn't take it.
Okay, so one of the things that's been very distressing to observe, I would say, and I'm going to use the UK as an example. I mean, the UK had 14 straight years of Conservative government.
Yeah.
And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, thank God for that, because it could have been Labour. But having said that, they fell 100% prey to the blandishments of the net zero types and brought forward really a catastrophic energy policy. And
Yeah.
the UK is suffering dreadfully for that. And their immigration policy, I mean,
Yeah, they listened to the World Economic Forum types, and they were like Mark Carney's type, really, to be totally straight and honest. And it was detrimental to them. They fucking messed up really bad. You know, it was horrible for their economy.
Starmer apologized for it, which...
Well, he should have. Well, he frickin' should have, man, because that was horrible. It was horrendous. Keir Starmer is horrible, by the way. I have no love lost for that guy. He really fucked up. Yeah, so like I was saying, Keir Starmer he's one of the reasons that their country is so backwards right now. He just resigned finally. He's still acting prime minister or whatever for now, but that dude screwed the country.
Which was something remarkable to behold, and so did Kemi Badenoch, who now runs the Conservatives in the UK. Now, the reason I'm bringing them up as an example is...
And now there's a new leader for the Conservatives who, I believe he just got elected or something, or he's running for the lead of it, and hopefully he will be a much better leader and will take the position of Prime Minister there and recover them, you know, like, hopefully he makes the cuts that are necessary and everything like that, because they need some conservatism in that country. UK is, I would argue to say it's worse off than Canada still. I'm not completely for sure about that. I know it's definitely got its problems, though.
Because, well, they were a Conservative government, and they certainly didn't govern by anything approximating Conservative principles. And so how do you feel about the probability that if the Conservatives in Canada take power, that they'll be enticed into this global utopian delusion that seems to have enveloped so many leaders, kind of regardless of their political stripe? What do you think, if anything, can inoculate you or has inoculated you against that?
I know better.
Well, elaborate. What do you mean?
I'm not going to do that. And it will be hard, because the temptation will be, this is the mistake that conservative parties around the world have made countless times. They think, well, anybody who's got a conservative mindset is already voting for me, so I can go off and chase the ideas of my political opponents, and then everyone will love me, because I'll have the conservatives due to the fact that I have the name conservative, and then I'll have all these other people because I've embraced their contrary direction. And in the short term, it works, because you manage to have all of these.
That's exactly what Doug Ford has done in the Progressive Conservatives in Ontario. He has become Progressive Conservative because then he can milk the cash cow at both sides, attempt to, you know, have conservative values or whatever, but then at the end of the day, really, I mean, he tends to be far more liberal and left, then he tends to be right. He's honestly a Mark Carney 2.0, just like he was a Justin Trudeau 2.0. I believe that the problem with progressive conservatism is that they actually decide to lean more into progressiveness than into conservatism. They don't stay, conservative. They go very, very center, or they go delving into that left without actually having any consideration for the right standard that they were elected for as well. I believe when you elect a conservative party, whether it's progressive conservative or a full-on conservative party, it ought to have more conservative values than progressive ones. You know what I mean? The name conservative shouldn't mean, oh, well, I'm actually just a liberal in disguise. It's such a fucking farce. We might as well just fucking remove the progressive conservative party for elections for premiers and just have fucking liberal 1 and liberal 2. Because that's all he's been, is another fucking liberal.
People under, and all of the different political ideologies captured in one tent. But the problem happens when the policies are a disaster. And then people...
And that's exactly what's happened with Doug Ford. Every single one of his policies has been a disaster. It's been all to tax people more, to inflate everything more. He isn't for the workers. He isn't for the people of Canada. He's for Doug Ford. He's for himself.
Will wake up and go, oh my God, my taxes are now up. The inflation is out of control. The deficit is spiraling. There's crime on the streets. So does the temptation exist to try and take on the political policies of the socialists in the short term? Sure, but it's one that I will fiercely resist, because I know that by the 4th year of my mandate, people would be enraged because their lives would be even worse. So it will be tough, though.
Yeah, they'd basically be in revolt. It'd be a total betrayal by year 4. They would see it. They would realize it. It's like, we just got another liberal out of this shit, And I think that's fair. I think it's fair for people to be pissed for, we voted for conservatism. Why are we getting this liberal leftist bullshit? It's just like how... Well, Mark Carney, he was supposedly left of center, right? But he's so far fucking left that it makes Trudeau look like he was a centrist. And he was far from a centrist. He was pretty far left for those days. And you still have the idiots on Twitter that fucking, peddle his shit. They're like basically sucking his dick off on that fucking site. They're crazy. Like, they don't care what's actually the outcome. They care about their party, and that's it. So they're like, well, I'm a liberal because I just love liberals, and I love liberalism. And so they defend him no matter what. Like, it doesn't even matter. Mark Carney just admitted to not winning the fight, the debate or the conversation with Trump about the defense spending. And guess what? I guarantee it, there's going to be people defending him doing that. And they're going to be like, oh, conservatives wanted defense spending, now they got it, and now they're complaining about it. It's not that. It's the fact that he was the only one that can negotiate the deal, yet Kuzma is up for a 10-year waiting period to be just straight up tossed to the side, essentially, or something like that. And it's like, your prime minister, the one that you guys voted in, our prime minister, but the guy that you guys voted in is fucking not keeping his promise with you guys, and you guys still freaking are doing this. You're still just giving him the props for doing nothing, for overstepping parliamentary rights and privileges, for, oh my god, there's so much. Like, they don't care about parliamentary procedure. Like, he won't allow other parties to have private members' bills read out and stuff like that. It's gotten insane. Like even his own party, the Liberals that aren't part of caucus cannot have private member bills read out either. It's insane. The guy no-shows for question period like 75-80% of the time.
Like it's going to be a trade-off.
The temptation. I mean, I think many leaders fall prey to the temptation to shine on the international stage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like this one. I'm going to read it to you just off of my phone here. It was Jasmine Lane's comment, and it was, Canada is the 4th largest resource nation on Earth, and we choose to be poor. That's not Trump's fault, that's Ottawa's. Hell yeah.
Right? I mean, I can't remember who it was in the UK. I believe it was the previous Labour Party leader who said that decisions in Westminster were essentially irrelevant because all the important things were happening internationally, right? And so if people are involved in status climbing and they hit the national pinnacle, there's the international world to, what would you say, to dominate or to impress. And that's, I think that the power of that temptation or even of that peer pressure can't be underestimated. So, okay, so now you've been in these events, these 600 events that you've gone to. So let's say that's something approximating 1,000 to 1,200 since we last talked. You spent a lot of time speaking to, and I presume...
Yeah, so I'm going to leave this here. You guys will have all these links in the description below. I want to move on to this one and touch on it before I finish off.
I was viewed as unseemly by the conservative establishment because the conservative way of doing things, it's not to go set up a card table.
No, definitely not.
It was to speak properly, and to go to Stanford, and to get the highest possible education. And what I was unknowingly on the cutting edge of was something you mentioned earlier, is that conservatives have now become low trust of institutions, and liberals have become high trust of institutions.
Welcome back once again. We're just popping back into this video. I just had to go to the washroom real quick, so here we are once again, continuing from where we left off.
Trust of institutions. Whereas liberals are the ones that will defend the FDA, and they'll defend the CDC, and they'll defend Pfizer, and they'll defend the intelligence.
That's defending Pfizer. That's really.
But they will. Yeah. Because they're high trust of institutions.
Because there's no one more trustworthy from a leftist perspective.
This is really insane to me because growing up, I was conservative as a kid. I grew up in a conservative family, but as I got to around the voting age, I kind of shifted to being more liberal because, I was more in line with the social values, and I didn't fully understand the conservative values that I was raised under as much as I would like to have. Like, if I understood them more, I probably wouldn't have wound up liberal at all for any period of my life. But I didn't, and it was, a mistake that I carry with me. I'm not really ashamed of it, but I do find it's important to talk about, and I'm proud to have shifted away from it because, God, I was fucking on some shit. Not literally, but, like, mentally. And, so I think that there's a important note right here going on, which is that, we were under conservatism with Harper, something that I felt like the Liberals had been doing for even years leading up to it, not just as Trudeau got in, but even prior to that. I don't remember who the leader was that lost to Harper or whatever, but I feel like there was this big movement going on behind the scenes that the Liberals had started, and they were getting their followers talking about it, and it kind of got to all of us where we didn't trust corporations, and that was very intentional. And then when COVID happened, it was a way to bring us back in. Like, in Canada, it was very common to not trust Big Pharma and to push against Big Pharma and to hate it, And it wasn't just Big Pharma, it was many corporations and stuff like that. And then COVID hit, and they're like, oh, trust Big Pharma, take this shot, trust. Even when a lot of the shots had not been tested, they were brand new and stuff like that, and we had many variations of vaccines and stuff like that. But, yeah, so they were basically shoving it back down their throats to trust corporations and Big Pharma out of nowhere, because it's theirs now, right? And so, well, you couldn't trust it when it was under conservatism, but now that it's ours, you should sure trust it. And so the doublespeak that comes out of liberals is unending.
Than Big Pharma.
But they find themselves defending institutions.
Yeah.
In the 1960s, they were low trust of institutions. Don't send us to war. Whereas today, actually, and I was on the cutting edge of this, was...
And you still see the don't send us to war thing with our liberals still. Like, they want no part in it because socially it's more acceptable to be like, oh, we're the nation of peace. And it's like, yeah, we're weak ass is what you're telling everyone, basically. That's how the world sees us.
In 2012, 2013,
we're weak ass and we don't want to fight. Even though there's plenty of fights that are actually still legitimate, we don't want to fight them. Like the North Korean. I think that the North Korean really needs some wars from a whole collective slew of people, because what they're doing in that country is just, it's unfucking democratic and it's unright. There's so much wrong with what they're doing in North Korea right now. The whole country is essentially a concentration camp. Like, just think about that. The whole country, concentration camp. Could you imagine? The farmers don't own any of their land. They don't own any of their food. They can't even take a portion of it to feed their family. It's all seized by the government.
Conservatives were still on the high trust of institutions.
Okay, so let me rephrase that slightly.
Please,
because,
yeah.
Well, because
but you understand what I'm trying to communicate.
I do. Well, there's a real conundrum there, because a conservative with low trust in institutions is like an oxymoron, right? Well, but
we're trying to conserve something institutions have destroyed.
Well, okay, that's the thing. So imagine that there's a hierarchy of institution. There's the fringe of the institution that's pretty exploratory. You can move into the center that's more conservative. Then you can move right to the bottom, which is, well, what? Well, I would say it's religious. Fundamentally, like as you move towards the core,
that's right,
you move towards what's more religious. And so the conservative stance isn't anti-institution. It's a stance that notes that, I know what's happened. You know, in the story of Moses, when Moses goes off to get the commandments, so he's the pipeline to God, right? He leaves his brother in charge, Aaron.
They have a rave party.
That's exactly right. They make this golden calf, which is a materialistic object, and they dance naked in the streets and have an orgy. And that's what happens to the political when it's detached from the sacred, when it loses
that's exactly
that.
Right.
Okay, so it isn't that the conservatives have become skeptical of institutions. It's that the conservatives have noted that the institutions no longer serve the purpose for which they were established.
Chartered.
Right? Chartered, exactly. And they're objecting, and that's happening everywhere. And that's part of this radical secularization.
Yes.
It's not just secularization, because there should be a separation between church and state, let's say. It's not that the institutions have become secular. It's that they've turned 180 degrees from their original orientation and are now rampaging as madly as possible in the other direction. So the universities are no longer the fortress walls against the barbarians. They're actually the voice of the barbarians, right? Hence the pro-Hamas demonstrations on campus.
Or the Black Lives Matter stuff, or the transgender stuff. That's
right.
Very well said.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest insane things to me is you have these Queers for Palestine stuff going on, these protests, and Hamas agents here, or maybe they're not even Hamas agents, maybe they're just Palestinian people, but I believe at least a certain amount of them are probably Hamas agents. Either way, that aside, it's so insane that they've actually manipulated people from like with proxies, you know, and stuff like that, that they actually convince people that, hey, Hamas loves you and we treat you better, we accept you as you are, just an FYI, Islam, by their very nature, it's said in the Quran that they can go to infidels and say whatever the hell they want to them. They can lie to them, manipulate them through whatever they say and whatever. So it's like, can you really trust that to be genuine? No, you cannot, not at all. And the thing is just because there are queers for Palestine doesn't mean that there's Palestine for queers. Yeah, if you went to Palestine, it's one of the most dangerous places for a queer person to go. There is a chance they would be executed. In fact, I'm very sure they execute queers there. Now, there's a number of ways that the Islamic countries and nations and stuff like that do this. One of the ways is tossing them off of buildings, like skyscrapers. Another is beheading and stuff like that. There's all sorts of different ways that they execute gay people and trans, whatever. Like, they don't even have trans people there because they're already killing gay people, and without the gay ideology, you wouldn't really have too much of the, well, I'm a flamboyant gay, I feel very feminist, and now I want to cut my wiener off, right? They don't have that type of stuff. These nations are extremely far right to a dangerous point. They're actually conservative, which is scary to me because I'm a conservative, right? But at the same time, the only way to really understand how these things can be damning is to look into them, and they're so extremely against that stuff that they would never be tolerated there. So it's to say queers for Palestine and then expect Palestine to be for queers, yeah, no, not so much. Why don't you go try living there to find out? That's not to say I want you to kill yourself or to get killed there, but if one or two from America happen to do so, or Canada, and then it didn't get reported, you would see the actual hypocrisy from the liberal leftist type movements, right? Now, almost undoubtedly, America would report it because they have a Republican in right now. Almost undoubtedly, the liberals would not report it. The liberals of Canada would not report it because of being leftist socialists. We would actually have to have someone, either the media or the independent media or the conservatives, report it instead of the liberals reporting it, because in Canada, the liberals basically tend to say whatever they can to make themselves look good, if they can. And without a doubt, if a Canadian gay person went to Palestine or whatever to report, or to live there, because, Queers for Palestine is Palestine for queers, and, they fell for the whole propaganda that the Palestinians push or whatever, then they went there and lived there and whatnot, Canadian, and say they got found out they were a Canadian homosexual, they would be executed. And I think that paints the liberals in a very bad light if that was to happen, so I don't think they would be forthcoming about that, you know what I mean? Yeah, so that's kind of the double standard that is the Liberal Party.